Welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. Feel free to introduce yourselves in your chat. My name is Alex Spengler. I'm at the head of product here at Birdie. And just talk a little bit about Birdie. Birdie, we are a feedback analytics platform. So for product teams. And our mission is to empower product people to let them make better decisions by leveraging the voice of the customer. If you are interested in learning more about us and learn more about how to use AI to deliver better products, I invite you to visit our website at birdieai.com. Today we have a very special guest. So we have here with us Chris. Chris is the lead product operations at Bubble, and he will give us a really masterclass about product operations. So I'm very excited with this. Chris, welcome, and this screen is yours.
Amazing, thank you, Alex. I will share. Please let me know if you cannot see the screen. I assume you can.
Yes, we are.
Welcome, everyone. Great, thanks, Alex. Hello, welcome, everyone. Hope you're doing well, wherever in the world you may be. Huge thanks to Birdie, the Birdie team, for organizing this and many other great talks. It's great to be here. I really enjoy these talks with the community, and hopefully you can learn something from what I'm going to talk through today. Thank you for joining us. As you can see, I'm Chris, and as Alex just introduced me, I'm leading product operations at Bumble, the dating app for kind of connections. And really my goal has always been to help teams to make better products. Whether that's at Bumble, where I am right now, or in previous roles at ThoughtWorks as a product consultant, and even further back as a product design manager at Sky TV and various other product consultant type roles I've held, my goal has always been the same: to help teams to build better products for our customers and their goals, better products that bring the business benefit that we're aiming for. You can connect with me here. I write quite a bit of what I talk about on my blog, ndxcc.com, and follow me on Twitter, which I'm probably less active on now, given the past year or so of turmoil. But you can also connect with me on LinkedIn, just search my name, and I'm sure the Birdie team will share it. Now, who I am is not too important. What I have to talk to you today about is going to be important. And I want to tell you a story. This story is all about how the multiverse undeniably is real and absolutely exists. You can completely ignore all the science behind it, because I'm going to tell you today, and I'm going to show you some of the principles and the abilities that will enable you to travel through this multiverse. So take it as fact. I'm telling you today, the multiverse is absolutely real. This is one you know probably quite well. It's one that you most likely live in already. And you probably have to already travel and navigate through the various universes. What's the name of this multiverse? The multiverse is called the product organization. The name of the story I have to tell you today is Everything Everywhere All at Once. You may notice already, you may have heard of this story already, and that's probably because it just won an Oscar for Best Picture last year, quite rightly. And because of that, you may also note some light copyright infringement. So please don't tell anyone throughout this presentation that I'm stealing all of their images and even some of their concepts. I can assure you that the world of product operations is almost as, if not just as exciting as a fictional world that this film portrays. And any newly formed product ops function, whether that's a team, an individual, whether they're new to the organization or actually being grown from within, is going to feel the pressure of this multiverse. The challenges facing each of the universes that they encounter will be at best complex, but often quite chaotic. The product teams and their counterparts across the organization will be faced with many operational challenges. How product operations understands and looks to solve some of these challenges will in itself be a challenge. And product ops is going to see all of this and feel the need to cover everything, everywhere, often simultaneously. The story I want to tell you today will give you some principles, some tools to travel across the product org multiverse. These principles, these tools will enable you to cover everything, everywhere, all at once, without even being there. And just to put your mind at ease, there will be no major spoilers in this talk. If you haven't seen the movie already, I highly recommend that you go and watch it directly after this presentation. I'm sure you'll be super excited to do that. And I just want to start by asking quite often the basic question, what even is product operations? Given that you're on this webinar with us today, I assume you'll have some basic understanding. I assume you already work in product development of some kind, and I assume you're already faced with many operational challenges. The way that I understand this at my very high level is product operations focuses on how the product org functions and not what the product org is trying to do for our customers in the business. The example I give here, and it is an extreme view, is that product ops shouldn't care about who our customers are, what their goals might be, what the metrics the business is focused on driving, and instead they should be laser focused on how product leadership and teams operate to solve for their customers, how they understand the line between the goals of the business, and how they communicate with the organization about progress and plans and any issues that they may be coming across during product development. Ultimately, product ops needs to ensure that the product org is effective and efficient in achieving what they're setting out to do. For me, this statement rings true. Product ops is an enabling function. We should be seen as a force multiplier, unlocking the superpowers of the product organization so they can focus on the customers and achieve the goals set by business leadership. That's as much as I'll say on the topic of product operations. There is definitely plenty of content out there already, plenty of articles, videos, talks, even some here at Birdie and other places. The community is very strong. There is Slack channels to join. There's also a product ops manifesto that has been pulled together under the leadership of Antonio Landi, another person that you can look for on LinkedIn. And that will give you an even greater picture about what product operations is and how they operate. There is definitely different views on different types of role, and that's a topic for another talk. And maybe one of the people on this call will be doing that in the future. And it's a really good conversation to have, but I'm just giving you my view. That's how I operate. And for clarity, when I say the product organization, I mean every single function and player within that organization. I'm not solely focused on product management. I look across the whole product development lifecycle, and I try and enable cross-functional teams and leadership. Before we get going on the story, I want to talk to you about the different roles required to effectively travel across the multiverse that is the product org. And understanding each of these product ops actors is essential to understanding, essential to the success of introducing not just behavioral change, but also the mindset shift within the product organization, regardless of what that mindset shift might look like. Anyone can replicate what has been told and shown to them. It's not hard to adhere to new behaviors. What we're really looking for with many change projects is for the mindset shift in whatever the changes that is being introduced. We also need to see a trend towards continuous improvement, whether that's within leadership, within teams, within individuals themselves, or even within systems. The first actor I want to talk to you about today is called the therapist. This is the role of working very closely with people to understand their problems, how they might solve their own unique challenges themselves. And the therapist is a vital role in not only building strong relationships early on, but also in understanding the varied challenges across the org, whether that's within the product org, within product development, or with business partners outside of that. And the therapist should be starting to make sense of these and pattern matching between various functions and departments, connecting the challenges together and really understanding the higher order challenge that might be faced with. Similar to a therapist, if you have ever been to one, if you have not, you absolutely should do. Particularly any of the men out there who may be shying away from therapy, please go. It's absolutely amazing. What you'll find with a lot of therapists is that they will listen to your problems, and then they will sometimes not talk to you at all, sometimes prod and nudge and shift you in a direction of thinking. So you're actually coming up with your own solutions to the problems that you may have, the challenges that you may have. That's exactly the same as the product ops therapist role here. The second actor is that of the detective. Being in product operations requires a really deep understanding of how the product org operates, the operational challenges it's faced with, and ultimately identifying ways for optimization across various different areas. The detective will go deep on the highest priority topic, bringing in the right people at the right time to ensure effective change together. I have to really highlight that co-creation and collaboration are the key success factors when it comes to change. This cannot be done alone. It requires a cross-functional group. It does not require a team of ops to come and solve everyone's problems. It requires a cross-functional group. The final actor is the coordinator. So by utilizing this now higher level and broader view that the product ops person has been through, because they've got the broad view from being a therapist and they've got the deeper view from being a detective, they're able now to see and identify more expansive challenges. They're able to organize, connect, and enable the right people to take on operational change projects while supporting from relative distance. These are the three product ops actor roles that I'm going to talk through today with you and give you the story, to give you the understanding and the principles and the tools to help you. Each of these roles has to be taken on sequentially. You cannot simply just jump to being a coordinator. It takes time to learn about the organization, its people, its challenges, its teams, its structures, its visible and non-visible politics, which come into every organization. And you first have to play the therapist and detective roles to actually get to that stage, to build the trust with the people, to get to a place where you can actually coordinate change from a distance. However, once mastered, you will find that every organization, every team, every challenge, every project that they're focused on, every customer type that they have, it will require you to play each of these different roles. And sometimes you may find that you have to play all of the roles at the same time on a certain project. Sometimes you just have to jump in and be the therapist. Sometimes you have to jump in and be the coordinator. Sometimes you have to play the coordinator, then backtrack into detective and back again. And that's quite confusing, right? And well, it is, because the multiverse is confusing. The product org is confusing. It's a complex world. Product development is messy, it's complex. It's challenging in many, many ways. And when you have various teams that should absolutely be focused on what they're delivering for their customers, sometimes the operational things fall to the wayside, and it can be quite a confusing place as teams and functions and groups of people focus solely on what they have to do and maybe have blinkers to the rest of the organization. Having the ability and knowing when to play each of these roles, that's how you're able to tackle everything everywhere all at once. And hopefully that's what I'm going to help you with today. So our story starts just like the movie, and again, I promise with no major spoilers. Our story starts with a new person joining the product organization. I'm sure you've all been in this situation where you're trying to understand how an organization actually works, operates, who the key people are, how to navigate through the various different functions, departments, and levels. And it's at this point, probably after a couple of weeks of meeting many, many people and consuming as much as possible, you may have heard of the analogy drinking from the fire hose. Only some of the water goes in your mouth and everything else goes everywhere else. It's at this stage, particularly as a product ops practitioner, that you start to realize all the various universes that you now have to operate in. When you first join, you don't just meet product managers and say, okay, now I look after the product management area of the business. You're meeting designers, researchers, analysts, engineering. You're meeting data people from various parts of the organization. You're meeting people that are looking into data science and AI. You may also be touching on things in recruitment, finance, legal, for us at Bumble, particularly within safety. All of these different parts of the organization are their own functions, with their own leadership, their own people. And this is where you start to realize the various and complex nature of the multiverse. And as you can see from Michelle Yeoh's brilliant acting here, it can start to feel quite pressurized. You can start to feel, as I mentioned earlier, that you as a product ops are here to solve everyone's problems, and you have to do that everywhere. And everyone is now coming to you because of the relationships you're starting to build with some of those challenges and some of those problems. And that is absolutely where the therapist role comes in especially in those early days of joining a product organization, but also in the early days of any kind of large-scale change project. You have to do your due diligence. You have to do your research. This is all about building relationships. It's about building various relationships across the organization, across functions, across levels, across departments. And my advice, because it's worked well for me in the past, is I meet everyone. I attempt to meet everyone. You're never going to get 100% coverage. However, meeting everyone and having good, strong conversations with them about who they are, maybe not to begin with some of their challenges, maybe that can wait for the second one-to-one, but the key piece of advice here is to really know them. When I joined Bumble and with everyone I met, I attempted and I challenged myself with knowing a fact about each one of those people within the first one-to-one, because I really want to know them. And this goes against the grain a little bit. What I'm going to say next is, as a product ops practitioner, I do not see product managers, product teams, and various functions as my customer. I see them as partners. And because I see them as partners, I need a strong relationship with them. And because of that, I need to know something about them. And that usually is something personal. Is someone really into Formula One? Has someone just moved to London from a different country? Does someone really like craft beer? Is there something I can talk to about with these people? And in these early stages, it's really important to alleviate pressure and concern. Now, what do I mean by that? When you join an organization, or you're a product ops team, or a person within the product development teams starting to think about operational procedures, a lot of people will feel quite concerned about that for two different reasons. One, you will have people in teams feeling like they're going to get scrutinized, and the way that their work is going to be scrutinized to a degree that they're going to seem as bad or not effective. Some people just don't want the interference. And secondly, this happens more with various levels of different types of leaders within the product org. People may feel threatened to their own jobs, because as a head of product or a product director or a product lead, for example, the feeling may be that someone's coming in to take away some of the things I really enjoy doing. You have to get in there quite quickly and alleviate some of that pressure and concern. Product operations is not here to pick holes in people's processes. Product operations is certainly not here to take away some of the things that people enjoy within their roles. We're here to enable, and as I said before, to multiply forces and really enable people to and grow their superpowers. And because of that, and as I touched on earlier within the therapist role, we are here to listen and to nudge. In these early stages, in these early days, I can hands down say I'm not going to be able to solve any legal or finance challenges in those early days. It's not my experience, but I'm definitely here to listen to what those challenges may be, the problems they may be faced with, and to nudge them in the right way to allow for self-service, so that it can go back and know that someone's been understood and has been pushing them in a certain direction to allow for that self-service, and that they can come back in the future as well. And while you're doing all of this, you're starting to build this operational network. You're starting to understand across the org, whether it's in the product org itself or in the wider organization, you're starting to build an operational network. Those people that are interested in process improvement, in new practices, in how we might manage tools and systems, how we think about the people within our org. And those are the people that you're going to be leaning on in the later stages. I want to make really clear that in those early days, and again, I talk about people joining the product org and people within the product org who might be thinking about change management and new operational procedures. It's very easy to fall into the trap of being the moth to the flame and following them. As an example, when I have joined previous organizations, I remember some of my first and early conversations with product managers was that the one-pager was too challenging. There was too many questions. It was really cumbersome. One-pagers, PRDs, etc. Very cumbersome to complete, and they wanted us to come in and fix this challenge for them. That's an interesting operational focus area, but it's not the bigger picture. That is as if we were talking about a pain point when we really should be thinking about what the larger customer problems might be. So don't follow the light, make sense of these things, and as I said earlier, start to pattern match across the organization, and then go to a slightly higher order. With that example, the challenge was actually not about the one pages and how product teams had to complete them. And in this example, it was definitely the product manager doing it. It was actually how we understood the customer problems we were tackling, how teams collaborated together, how our strategy was aligned, and how those teams were aligned to the strategy, should I say. So actually thinking about the higher order issues was going to solve more of their problem than moving around some of the text and some of the buttons and some of the fields on a one-pager that was on Confluence. And finally, to be really clear on operational focus, when coming to the end of, again, thinking about being the therapist and joining the organization, growing your operational function, at the end, you're going to feel the heat just a little bit, that you actually have to start having some impact. And there's possibly 1,000 different ways to go. Some of them are going to be high priority. Some of them sound high priority, but won't be. And some of them are actually just red herrings that you probably shouldn't go after. And actually being really clear on your strategy, on your roadmap within that, is really going to help people to communicate with you for you to be able to say no, just like a good product manager is able to say, is actually push back and go, no, that's not actually within my remit. I will be able to help you and support you, but I will not be able to drive this for you. The way that I organize myself at Bumble is I look at 3 different areas. I focus on the practices, the procedures, the processes of our product org. For example, how we might do product experimentation, some of our review sessions that we have so we can communicate our progress with the organization. I also look at the systems, so the tools, how we use them, how we govern them, and also some areas within people, hiring, recruitment, health, team health, etc., knowledge, onboarding, all these types of things, and the various crossovers between them. Of course, if we have good practices, we have happy people. If we have strong systems, we have good practices. And then within that, then it's time to start building out what that roadmap looks like. And then within the roadmap, you start to highlight the highest priority concerns and communicating that and being very clear on that on an ongoing basis is the way to make sure that you have clear focus and that people know how to interact with you. The second part of this is now when we come into having that deeper impact. So actually picking up the reins and going, I've understood the organization, I've understood the challenges that it's faced with and the different areas that they may have problems in, and I'm going to focus on a particular area. This is all about building trust and finding those partners. Now that you build up relationships, that's not good enough. You actually have to have impact, you have to have value. And it's about bringing those partners in, as I mentioned before, the operational network, and owning areas of optimization. Pick a high priority area, go deep on it, make sure that you're having an impact. I want to talk very quickly about thin slicing versus broader change. When we look at this picture here, you can imagine at the top of this triangle is probably the product leadership or even like organizational exec leadership. And at the bottom of the triangle, much wider, the base of the triangle is product teams, product development teams building things for our customers. If you only introduce change here, this broad change, and again, going back to the one-page example, you are going to solve the challenges for maybe one set of people, maybe with some slight challenge solved for some other functions. But you're not really going to have the deep impact that they're looking for and that I'm looking for as a product ops practitioner. The reality is that we need to be able to solve for all of these. And this is something we used to talk about at ThoughtWorks a lot. When you're building software, don't just build the architecture behind it. You actually have to serve your customers as well. It's the same concept here. The things that you're introducing have to have impact, not broad, but deep across all areas of the product organization. That really allows you then to be lean and experiment and iterate. If you were to go broad and introduce that change, it's big, it's heavy, it's hard to actually turn the ship around, it's hard to be lean, it's hard to experiment. When you have a thin slice, you can experiment across any of those areas without affecting some of the other areas. And this is also about having clarity on status and stage. With all of my change projects, I'm very clear if this is a live project, whether it's been paused, whether it's in draft, whether actually we're starting to communicate. And I have a very simple change management framework that I use. And I simply go through each of these stages. I audit the problem, I define potential solutions, making clear to obviously co-create and collaborate at this stage. We communicate with the right people, we put it into operation. Most of the time, we then sit there, allow it to run for a few months, maybe a quarter, maybe half a year, then look to optimize. We then look to amplify across the organization. We then look to elevate to higher levels of the organization, and then we celebrate any wins. This is a really nice, quick change framework to use. I want to really be clear here as well that partners should be owning this process. This is any operational change should be owned by partners. The product ops team does not own any of that. So it has to be introduced, handed over, and then we have to roll off. And as I said, elevate change and celebrate wins. Going to go a little quicker because I don't have that much time left, as I just realized. This final stage is where the coordination comes back in. You're starting to see across the whole organization, both broad, both high and broad. You're starting to develop a sense of the challenges that are happening right now, but also future ones as well. And this is where the coordinator comes in, focused on mindset change over behavior change. As I said earlier, it's easy to display behaviors. It's hard to enact mindset change. It's all about building the operational muscle. And I would also say that the product ops in the coordination mode should really be managing the system, not the people. Product ops does not manage other functions and other people. They are not a project manager, but they will manage the system. It's all about spreading knowledge, capabilities, and abilities, and building focus working groups. build support working groups that may be looking at particular operational challenges, and allow them to also experiment, which means fail. Allow them to fail. Allow them to try and iterate and to experiment in different areas. Some things will work, some things won't, and that's absolutely fine. That's a path to learning. Also, it's about amplifying the good. If good things are happening, it's about going as broad as possible, and the product ops coordinator here should really be looking to amplify across the organization so we don't have idiosyncratic processes being introduced. That allows then for flexibility, and as ever, you have to be adaptable. These are the takeaways. I know I'm just on time because I spoke a little slower than I expected. In the early days, be the therapist, build relationships, listen, nudge, be clear on your focus. As you start to grow, become the detective, building the trust, think about thin slicing and ownership by other partners. And finally, be the coordinator, focus on mindset change, not behavior change, spread your own knowledge and amplify the good. The last bit I spoke to very quickly, so I apologize for that. If you do want to follow more, read more, as I said, I write everything on my blog, ndxcc.com. And this is the first time I've done this talk, so that's why I didn't know about my timings. But I would really love some feedback. When Birdie shared this slide deck out, the link is there, but for the time being, there's a QR code because the link is too long. Please take some time to fill it out. It's gonna be super useful for me to know if this content is useful, relevant, and engaging. So please do that. And I will stop there and say thank you for joining us. I hope you're all still there. And yeah, Alex, I'll pass back to you and let me know if there's any questions. Sure.
Chris, thank you. Amazing contact. I learned a lot with you, and I have sure that everybody learns a little bit, at least too. So just jump to the questions here. The first one is, what is the typical reporting structure to the product ops function, and how are organizations measuring their effectiveness and results from the function?
I love these kind of questions because I can go back into consultant mode and say it depends. It's absolutely dependent on the context of the organization. For example, I'm a team of one at Bumble. There's only me focused on operations. And because of that, it means I have to get into coordination mode quite quickly, or I'm not going to have the impact that I expect to have. In my previous organization at Farfetch, the reporting structure, and at Bumble, I report directly into the VP of product, who is at the moment our most senior product person. At Farfetch, my previous role, we had a head of product ops, a great guy called Kuldeep, and we had a small team. I think at our largest, we had 4 people in that team, some principals, some specialists. And in other organizations, it's different. At Farfetch, Kuldeep reported into, again, VP of product. But in different organizations, it can be different. Sometimes the product ops will report directly into the CPO, if there is one. The team size may be drastically different. I've heard of product ops teams of 12 people and more. And those teams are slightly different to me, right? They're in a position where actually their organizations are maybe incredibly effective at operating. There's always room to improve and grow, of course, but in those organizations, there's product ops managers very much focused on a couple of teams at a time, making sure that qual and quant data is coming into those teams, that insights are understood, that they're aligned correctly to their OKRs and making good progress, communicating that with the rest of the org. It's certainly not the world I'm in, but those teams do exist. So it can be quite specific to each org and the challenges that they're faced with. The second part of the question, how are organizations measuring their effectiveness and results from the function? This is a question that comes up quite a lot. I love it. It depends. Another consultancy response. Product ops can be, I think one of the fallacies is that everything needs to be measured in a quantitative way, and it does not. You can measure product ops in a qualitative way. Like questions around, in your early days, are you clear on your purpose as a team? Do you understand how you're aligned strategically? Do you collaborate well as a team? Do you feel like you understand your customer problems? All those types of questions will give you insight into some of the challenges they're faced with and whether introducing anything is going to actually have the effect that you wanted. And it's not just product teams. I have a health survey with my a particular product leadership team. And every month we ask the same health survey and we measure and we discuss and we use it almost like a retro. If those numbers are going up, because they feel like they're in control of their own teams and product, and outside influencers aren't having too much of impact, but they know how to organize their teams and how they're, again, strategically aligned. All these types of questions can be very useful. I will say it does depend, again, because the example I gave of the product managers looking at a couple of teams will measure themselves in a completely different way to how I might.
Perfect. And how people can contact you to learn a little bit more from you, new tips and researches about the things that you shared here?
Yeah, I would definitely say go to Medium, check out ndxcc.com. I write as much as I can there. Most of my writing comes through frustrations that I find when I'm doing this role. And to be really clear, ops is a really challenging role to be in, because you see, as the talk says, you see a lot of challenges everywhere, and you feel like the pressure to solve those as much as you can. The ops role is an enabling role. We're here to support other people, and so a lot of my talks come through that. A lot of my articles come through that. So please take a look. Of course, you can contact me on LinkedIn. As I said, I'm sure Birdie will send that link out. I am on Twitter, same handle, ndxcc. Feel free to follow me, although, again, not too active in that space as much as I used to be. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy to talk to anyone. If anyone wants to talk through some of these concepts, if anyone wants to talk about operations within their organization, I'm very happy to talk to people. LinkedIn is probably the best way to contact me at the moment.
Thank you, Chris. Unfortunately, we are almost out of time here. So I hope you and everybody enjoying our webinar today, and also hope to see you in the next ones. Follow us on LinkedIn to stay tuned for upcoming events and news. And again, thank you for being here with us.
Yeah, and thank you, Alex, and the Birdie team, and everyone that joined. Look forward to meeting you in the future.
Thank you, Chris.